Welcome back, everybody. We have the players sat down and ready, Baker. I'm Joe Curley, and this is the finals of the first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge here in Lille, France. Baker, how are we feeling? Our voices are a little bit gone, but the excitement is palpable.
My voice is gone, he's right, but I had to get that out one more time. That is exactly how I'm feeling. I am overcome with villainous ambition to watch the final of two of the greatest Lorcana players, and I think that's a fair statement. They have earned it over the course of this weekend, going through 9 rounds of Swiss with over 2,000 players, and then an excruciating top 64 where these players have had to win, and they are still going, and we are going to find out who is the first ever Disney Lorcana champion of Lille in the world. Love it. Lille in the world doesn't really make sense, but they're the first Disney Lorcana Challenge champion.
Nothing you said was wrong. Nothing you said was wrong. Yeah, the players are currently sat down assessing each other's deck list. We've got kind of a view over it here. Nothing too much to see at the moment. They're just looking through each other's deck list.
Yeah.
One bare necessities. We've seen both these players. So I guess a lot of the audience might not know. We saw, of course, Reece coming through somehow out of nowhere, really, in that game number 3 with their Ruby Amethyst deck overcoming Amethyst Emerald. And honestly, I think that this leaves us with a really exciting final, because they are going to be up against Frank Karsten, who we did watch earlier on with that Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain.
I'm excited for Pooh. Sorry, for Piglet to come down and put in some more work. I'm sure Pooh will be there as well. He is supportive of his friend Piglet, but it's Piglet that is the main man here.
Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain. The captain synergy there with Mr. Smee, the bumbling mate, is nothing.
The bumbling mate, love it.
To underestimate.
We're going delirious at this point. It's been a long weekend, but I'm ready. I'm going to make it to the end. And I keep saying, like, I've been on the edge of the seat, genuinely, while you're watching these games and you can't see us. Me and Specky are literally like this, like full on staring, like here it is. And it's just been such a pleasure to be involved.
Absolutely.
With the first ever one of these. I make a lot of jokes, but quite genuinely, thank you to everyone that has joined us. Thank you for putting up with us. And yeah, what a pleasure it will be to watch the finals and see who is going to be the first Disney Lorcana Challenge champion.
Yeah, and having had an opportunity to talk with both these players a little bit earlier on, some really interesting storylines developing with these players.
For sure.
We've got two very different sides of the scale in many ways. So Frank Karsten is very well known, has a history of competitive card games. In fact, Brennan DeCandio, who is very well known within the community over in America, messaged me, I think this morning or late last night. I didn't make top 64 over in Atlanta, but watch out for Frank Karsten, because I think that they're going to be winning the game, winning the tournament. I'm just going to double check one thing. Okay, cool. My screen's got a little bit funny there, so
apologies, we're a little behind there, but I don't think...
My screen got a little bit rearranged, so I got caught off guard.
We are all good. I believe this is the mulligan phase. I don't think that's ink. I think they are still going on the mulligan. Yep, so we haven't missed anything. We are here. Frank Karsten, Reece, Benlier, the finals.
It is time. So, yeah, Frank Karsten, big background. As I mentioned, Brennan DeCandio told me at the start of the top 64 that he thinks Frank Karsten is going to win. And, well, seems like a pretty good prediction, but Reece is the last man in Frank's way. And I was just chatting with Reece from London, and he was telling me he picked up this game at the start of this set.
Really?
Into the Inklands was the first time Reece played. His friend gave him a deck that was good in set 2 and added a few more cards. What was it? Ruby Amethyst.
Of course.
And of course, Reece has stuck with that deck all the way and now finds their way in the final. And Reece is just looking at the shuffling from Frank and feeling intimidated right now.
It's a mind game right from the beginning, and you can see the look on Reece's face. It's like, oh God, how am I going to beat this? But no, this is going to be a really good game. We've got Ruby Amethyst versus Steel Amber Songs. I feel like that's kind of like the ultimate rivalry since the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
They were definitely the two top decks of set 1. Set 2 was Ruby Amethyst kind of overwhelmingly, but I don't know, I feel like this is the ultimate rivalry.
I agree.
This is cinema. That's what this is. This is cinema. Just waiting for approval that they are good to start, which I believe has been passed.
Yeah, so Frank did take down Ruby Amethyst as no turn 1 play comes through from Reece. Frank did take down Ruby Amethyst in the semi-finals, but I will mention it was a deck without any Be Prepared and 2 copies of Hydra, which is just absolutely incredible.
I would love to have time to dissect that now.
But Frank's got a very different matchup compared with the previous Ruby Amethyst player, because Reece's deck is a little bit more what we're used to seeing. be prepared, and importantly, Frank only running one copy of Bare Necessities, which is going to be a key way usually that these Amber Steel Songs decks would discard a card.
I'm sorry to cut you off there,
Absolutely.
but Curly, but we absolutely have to pay attention to that. No 1-drop, no 2-drop for Reece. That cannot feel good. Frank already with a queen on the board, who can of course shift into the 5-drop queen, which could be a very early way of getting online a whole new world. Although, judging by the way Reece has played so far, I don't think that Frank is keen to go straight down that line. But still, this queen a really powerful character when she quests, the Floodborn that is, giving 1 character on the board +4 strength and 1 -4, so helping to get over bigger bodies. Definitely going to put in some work. We see the Tinkerbell inked, and down comes the classic steel 1-drop. Who is it? It's Robin Hood.
Yeah, Robin Hood entering the board. Couple of different shift options that Frank is now threatening. Queen's Castle goes into the Inkwell, and finally it's the Minnie Mouse that we know Reece loves so much.
Better late than never.
Ambitions as well coming down to remove the Robin Hood.
Nice catch-up turn that kind of makes up for missing turns 1 and 2, able to play the Mini and have enough ink to pay for Teeth and Ambitions. Obviously can't sing it, put the 2 chip damage on Mini. And do you have a theory why he prioritised getting rid of the Robin Hood over the Queen?
Good question. Well, I think that the Robin Hood that shifts in is a little bit more powerful in terms of that 6 willpower can be difficult to remove. Also, the Queen could have shifted in on turn 2 Baker as well, right? Whereas Robin Hood, there it is a turn 3 shifter. Aerial comes through, big moment. No song, no song, no song.
Finds
the one
copy.
Bare Necessities.
Oh, forget about your worries and your strife. There is the Bare Necessities. Again, it gets more intense the more they draw cards. That's the second time we've seen someone miss the first 3, but no, the Bare Necessities does come through.
Big moment in this game. Now, that Bare Necessities, of course, the only one Frank has available, and Reece now knows it's in hand.
Yep.
So though Reece no longer, once that Bare Necessities is inked, a whole new world is played, anything like that, no longer has to be scared of Be Prepared being discarded.
Absolutely. So, again, that's
unless a whole new world comes through. That's another way that Frank can discard Reece's Be Prepared.
Yeah, of course, but yeah, that's part of the skill tier of this game, making sure you're always acknowledging which resources your opponent has burnt through and which are still available. Frank taking his time, he's got a healthy looking hand, so probably a few options. Obviously, he's already played all the ink that he can. Oh, he can still. He went first, did he? I don't know if he's inked for the turn.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
Reece
so.
opened, if I'm not mistaken.
Reece opened, okay.
Well, we'll see as this.
As this plays out.
Yeah, he did ink. You can see the Robin Hood there that's face up.
Of course,
Frank doing a really good job for us as well of leaving that new Robin Hood card up, face up in the Inkwell. It's actually a new rule that we've been introduced to in Disney Lorcana this week, where you are allowed to do that for this exact reason. It's a lot easier to track that, in fact, a card has been inked this turn, not only for players apparently, but also the casters.
For absolutely the casters. I will absolutely take that on the deck. Shame. But no, yeah, he has, of course, ink for the turn. Just eyeing up what he wants to do with this Queen of Hearts. Does he want to quest? He is going to do so, putting 1 lore on the board. And that will pass the turn over to Reece, who's going to, of course, ready, set, draw, the way all Lorcana turns start. Drawing that Rafiki, Mystical Fighter, can definitely help with having characters on board to respond to the board state.
The Fox is going to bounce the Mini back, essentially healing her because that damage counter gets removed. And the Queen is removed from the board by the Madam Mim Fox with Rush. Now, Frank, 2 lore on the board. Reece still hasn't done any questing as of yet.
Did he not quest with that Mini just then before he bounced it?
Oh, it has. There we go. 1 point on the board.
Yeah. Just hadn't updated yet, but I was going to say I assume he would do so.
Yes, absolutely.
And then followed up by the Rafiki Mystical Fighter, who has that Challenger 3 ability. Also the ability where he doesn't take damage from hyenas, but not really relevant at the moment.
Aerial on the board for Frank. Of course, not only a 3-cost character, but a 3-cost character with the Singer 5 ability. Going to be able to sing 4 or 5-cost songs, or 3 or 2 or 1-cost songs if Frank desires, which can be very powerful, of course, combined with Steel with cards like Grab Your Swords and A Whole New World. Frank, considering their options at this moment in time,
I think it's going to be a double.
For the other aerial. Now, let's see. Take 2. That's not 1.
That's just me. That's a Queen. There is the Let the Storm... Oh, so he's got options here, so that was a very good hit. Second aerial coming down, trying to... obviously wasn't satisfied with the Bare Necessities. But yes, Storm Rage on is definitely a good card to help him draw more cards. And Strength for a Raging Fire could do a lot of damage based on how many characters he has on the board.
Definitely a moment for Frank to really just pause here. Take the time. It's an untimed finals. So it definitely is unsurprising to see a very experienced veteran of card games really using the time to their advantage to make a big decision
100%.
and make sure that they don't regret it down the line.
And again, this is the grand finals. If there was ever a time to sit back and rethink your move, this is probably it.
Absolutely.
But again, Frank's such a good player, identifying the correct line probably quite quickly, but again,
you can almost see with the hand movement there, just calculating many turns ahead perhaps.
Yeah, I imagine.
We're just thinking about what might be good on this turn, but Frank might be thinking about what's good in turn 10.
I was literally going to say he's 10 turns ahead. I'm right there with you, buddy. That aerial that has dry ink, that was there since last turn, is looking to exert. Is it to sing the Storm Rage on? It certainly is. That's going to take out the Madam Mim Fox with the 2 damage that it does, and it's going to draw an additional card for Frank, finding another Strength of a Raging Fire. So a song-heavy hand.
Yeah, aerial is now exerted, which does mean that it could be challenged by Rafiki. In comes the Bare Necessities going down into the Inkwell.
And as you were saying, now that Bare Necessities is gone and deck lists are public information, Reece knows that there isn't going to be another one. So maybe we'll feel a little bit safer about holding the Be Prepared. But again, as you also said, a whole new world could still rip it from him.
Maleficent comes down and draws Reece a card. And sure enough, Rafiki does remove the aerial, and Rafiki, for its trouble, goes into the discard pile.
Yeah, that's a pretty cheap trade, though. Just a 1-cost character taking out that really diverse aerial, so I'm sure Reece is feeling pretty good about that. He's going to extend his board a little bit with the Wanted Llama Kuzco, 2-cost character, Inkable, quest for 1, 1/2 stat line, forgive me, and draws a card when banished.
Frank currently has 4 ink, going to be exerting 3 of that ink to play. Is it another aerial?
Oh, baby, a triple. We're still looking for songs. Is that a miss?
Oh my goodness, it's finally happened.
That's a miss.
And here's the thing, aerial with 20 songs, around 80% hit rate. So it isn't unlikely for Frank to be missing with aerial, because it's not really like you're going to play much more than 20 songs in the deck.
Yep, for
so
sure.
as powerful as aerial is, when she does miss like this, it can feel really bad.
For sure, and I do want to just very quickly highlight, when you put the cards that you put to the bottom of your deck can be in any order. Now, I often see players just shove all of them to the bottom, but you notice Frank there actually taking the time to look and see what might be a priority, and you may be thinking, but it's going to be forever before he gets there. That is true, but the more aerials he plays puts more cards at the bottom of the deck, and those cards do start to make their way up, especially when you're singing Whole New World and really digging through. So remember, if you do miss with aerial, or even if you hit those other cards, think about the order.
Absolutely. As Reece is now going to draw.
The Bumbling Mate has made its way to the field.
It looked like it might have been a Queen's Castle, which Reece found. And it is, and I think it goes straight into the Inkwell.
Yep.
6 ink exerted, and in comes Madame Medusa. What a powerhouse set 3 card this has been.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Cusco quest for 1 as well.
A common opinion of a lot of the community is Medusa is potentially one of the best card in the game, if not one of the best. Taking out characters with 3 or less strength is so much of the format, right?
Yeah, Madame Medusa just going from strength to strength. As Mr. Smee doesn't currently have a captain on the board, so it will be damaging itself by 1 potentially at the end of the turn. Kuzco is challenged by Smee, which leaves that 1 damage counter on Smee, but not for long, because Rapunzel, gifted with healing, heals up Smee and draws a card for every damage token removed. There's just 1 damage counter there on the Smee, so 1 card drawn for Frank.
Yeah, and of course sometimes you really want to maximise that draw of Rapunzel, but it doesn't really matter as much for Frank's deck. He's got Whole New World and just that 1 extra card, and more importantly, applying pressure to the board. We're also playing a Strength of Raging Fire, another reason why he probably wants another character down on the board.
Yep, strength is being
it's being inked,
in fact,
I do apologise. Inking that, throwing down the Smee.
So double Smee on the board.
And it is going to be aerial that sings the Strength of a Raging Fire.
And with 4 characters down on the board, Strength of a Raging Fire able to deal 4 damage and play passes on over. There is no captain on the board, so there should be some damage tokens.
That is true.
Going on to this Smee. The Smee should be 2, and that is done exactly. What happened here? Where did the Smee go? Well, okay, we missed that, but let's just carry on.
Yeah,
let us know in the chat what we missed.
Yeah, I assume something, but we'll carry on for now. We see another Medusa hitting the field. Reece said, okay, well, I'll have another one. And then a Rafiki, of course, passing back into Frank, who's going to play the Storm Rage on to get rid of this Rafiki and draw another card.
Yeah, Reece Can't quite see the cards in hand. For Frank, it looks like 2 and maybe this 3rd card ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's just the Rapunzel. So the Rapunzel going to be singing. Then along came Zeus to remove Medusa, and Mr. Smee is going to quest for 2. Slowly but surely getting there, and ends the turn, and Captain Mr. Smee is going to take that 2 damage. They're playing so quickly.
They are.
Now he trades out the Rapunzel and has 1 damage
doing.
counter.
Again, these are experienced players. They know the matchup. They know exactly what they're doing. Passing back into Frank, who draws Strength of a Raging Fire. He also has a Stout-Hearted Cinderella on the board, who could play if he wants to ink that Strength of a Raging Fire, but is that too important of a song?
Well, I think getting that Cinderella through could be a game changer for
agree.
Frank. Very, very difficult character to remove.
Yep, it looks like that's the way we're going, and thankfully, because he has Mr. Smee on board, that Stout-Hearted Cinderella will be safe from a Lady Tremaine drop on Reece's side of the board.
Yeah, really good observation. So Frank could quest with Mr. Smee to get that 2 lore, putting themselves to 6. But as you just mentioned, the threat of Lady Tremaine, I would wager that Mr. Smee might just leave, stay exactly where they are, and then try and remove the Maui more efficiently. Okay, Reece draws friends, sings it with Maui. Great find. Maui unable to quest, but can sing songs. And there we see the Be Prepared. And not a bad second find either, that Maleficent Sorceress.
Yeah, that's a bit juicy. Love a bit of Maleficent coming down to draw another card. Not yet, of course, but at some point it's going to help to retain resources from Reece.
Really fascinating moment. A lot of people are like, well, what is going on? Reece had all this ink available.
Yeah.
Why on earth have they not played the Maleficent, drawn some cards? Well, they know there's no threat anymore of this Be Prepared being discarded unless Frank was to find exactly a whole new world.
Exactly.
And decides that they want Frank to play a little bit further into a potential Be Prepared instead.
Of course, and like maybe a little bit of mind games here, because Frank would assume that if Reece drew much of that, he would have played it. So maybe that does give him a read on the Be Prepared in hand.
I think so.
Stout-Hearted Cinderella, so incredibly powerful. 7 cost inkable, 5/5. Can shift for 5 on top of another Cinderella. Didn't in this instance, but can. Quest for 3, resist 2, making it so difficult to get rid of. And a singing sword. If a song is sung, doesn't have to be by Cinderella. In fact, then she wouldn't be able to challenge. But if a song is sung in general, she could challenge ready characters.
Yeah, 1 card in hand for Frank. Didn't quite get a glimpse of what it is. I think still a little bit scared of that Lady Tremaine potentially as well.
For sure.
Of course, Maui could swing into Smee, and then Lady Tremaine might leave Cinderella exposed as the only character left on the board.
Of course, if Maui goes into that Cinderella, won't be enough to take it out due to that resist 2, would only do 4 damage, which would leave Cinderella on the board. Going to quest for that 3. Again, such an aggressive quest.
Very nice quest power.
Very strong card.
Frank, considering their options at this moment in time, decides they want to quest. And this is something that I recommend to a lot of players where, okay, and actually passes play on over. Both players deciding not to play a card. I think Frank has the read that it's maybe a Be Prepared. Reece doesn't really waste any time on this occasion and goes for that Be Prepared.
Yeah, at this point you kind of have to. Otherwise,
it's Strength of Raging Fire, and is that a Storm Rage on as well? It's
another Cinderella. I was just about to say, he knows he needs to remove this Cinderella because it's such a hard card to deal with. But Frank finding another. But does Reece have the Tremaine?
Doesn't yet, but
no.
Maleficent comes through.
Hopefully can find it. Won't be able to play it this turn, but you need to find an answer.
Ink still there, and I think it's a goat that's coming down.
A goat, is it? Okay, I think he would have preferred a rabbit, but hey, we'll take what we can get.
But friends available for Reece is pretty interesting because it's only strength at the moment, and Sleepy's Flute means that Cinderella is still in danger of that Lady Tremaine off the top.
Yeah, I imagine Frank is very keen to get to another character. Obviously knows that interaction could be very important. That's why he kept his Smee readied and not questing to protect it. Is going to quest. Again, if you can... He hasn't got a lot going on. He just needs to play with what he's got. It does throw down the Sleepy's Flute.
Doesn't exert it.
I know you're disappointed.
I know. Could have exerted it for no reason at all.
Never mind.
Only 1 Tremaine in Reece's deck, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Just to let everybody know, everyone in the audience watching, there's only 1. Friends does come through, so there's a couple more opportunities to potentially find it. Doesn't as of yet.
Again, as you say, only 1 copy, so no guarantee that we're going to find it anytime soon. I think other than the Tremaine, the only real answer to this Cinderella is Be Prepared, and of course other than challenging, but with that resist 2, it could take a lot of challenging. It could be a really inefficient trade.
That is an aggressive turn though from Reece, developing the Queen's Castle and also getting that stylish surfer down. It's Rapunzel, gifted with healing, Stout-Hearted, could remove the rabbit, sorry, the
The goat or the Maleficent.
The goat, and then use Rapunzel to heal up a whole bunch and draw some cards. Of course, with Cinderella's resist, the goat is decided.
Yeah, with that resist 2, it's only going to do 2 damage to the Stout-Hearted. And yeah, that's got to be a heartbreaking moment for Reece, who must have felt like he was so far ahead and that Frank didn't have anything going on. Getting another Stout-Hearted after removing the first would be prepared, and then finding the Rapunzel. This is exactly what Frank needed to stay in this game.
Yeah, and Frank is only 10 away at this moment in time well. Sleepy's Flute down on the board.
Whole world in his hand. Oh, this is going to keep going. We've got a Queen 1-drop. I think that's a Strength of a Raging Fire as well. So has he got enough ink?
The concern for Frank might be with the whole new world that they could end up helping Reece out by drawing into a Be Prepared.
For sure.
Okay.
Isn't able to play that Strength of a Raging Fire this turn, which I'm sure they would have liked to have done to get rid of the mini, but doesn't have enough ink and no dry ink characters that can sing it.
Queen's Castle does gain Reece 2 lore to begin the turn. 3 ink exerted. It's another Maleficent.
Drawing another card. Nice consistency card. What did that find?
I think it might have been a crab.
Crab is pretty good. That's definitely going to help them get over the Cinderella.
Something that costs 3. It could be another Maleficent, maybe. It is another Maleficent, it seems.
Drawing all the cards.
And another goat, I do believe.
How much ink have we used? 6 so far. So
yeah,
one
left. Ink to go. And I don't believe a card was inked this turn,
No, I
Baker.
don't believe so. Otherwise, it would probably still be face up, as you were talking about not too long ago.
Frank is 10 away and currently on the board with Rapunzel, Queen, and Cinderella can quest for 6. Sleepy's Flute maybe could get them to 7. Shift Queen also is a threat, so maybe threatening to get to 18 this turn. So Reece not quite worried about Frank winning the game in the next turn just yet.
Inks the Fox to play Pinocchio, who's going to choose to exert that Queen, wants to get rid of it, doesn't want it turning into the Floodborn version with that ability that can manipulate strength, which would make it so much easier to remove the castle and just all characters. So I think that's a really nice pick.
Minnie Mouse going to quest, which is bringing Reece up to 9 lore.
And passing back over to Frank, who is going to ready, set, draw, as is the tradition at the beginning of a turn in Lorcana.
Oh, and look, the Queen was found off the top, I believe. Reece really going out of their way to remove that shift threat. And that would have meant that the Queen's Castle could have been dealt with pretty easily as well.
Yes, literally immediately could have boosted up the Cinderella Stout-Hearted to take it out in one shot.
What a fascinating game. Just one lore between these players as we are about 20 minutes into game number 1 of the grand final.
Has it been that long? It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
It really doesn't, does it? Timer might have started when they were sitting down, I'm not certain.
Potentially, who knows? Either way, this
maybe we're just having fun. Time does fly when you're having fun, Baker.
It does. So is Frank considering that whole new world again? Like you say, he may be worried about giving Reece too many resources, but surely in the mind of the Steel Song player, they're saying, okay, I'm going to do more with my resources than you are, and I'm going to outvalue in the long run. But he does have a healthy board state, could maybe ride the wind of this for a couple of turns.
Frank really assessing the options.
Because he could sing Whole New World with Cinderella Stout-Hearted, and then he would still have 4, 5, 6, 7 ink, or even 8 when he inks for the turn, to continue to apply pressure. But it's looking like he's umming and ahhing. Maybe he wants to hard cast it, play it, and
I think a concern for Frank here is if they do go for the Whole New World, the Be Prepared that could come the other way could be pretty heartbreaking. With that Queen's Castle sticking around on the board, Frank would struggle to remove that Queen's Castle in a quick manner.
Does decide to just play the Queen of Hearts Floodborn for 5 ink.
And Reece is going to be feeling very, very happy with themselves that they removed the Queen, which was readied and only able to be removed due to Pinocchio Talkative Puppet.
For sure, if it wasn't for that, then this Queen would already be questing and manipulating strength, and yeah, Frank would be really starting to overtake this board and at least dealing with the castle. But as it stands, can't deal with the castle. Cinderella's challenging for 5. Rapunzel could challenge for 1. It's not enough. Frank really thinking about this, and I don't blame him at all. This is really high pressure, high stakes game, the finals of the Disney Lorcana Challenge. Cinderella is going to quest for 3, taking her out to 13. getting closer and closer. Will this Rapunzel quest as well to bring it to 15? Because if I'm Reece and Frank's at 15 with this board state, I'm a little worried.
Yeah. Frank's got to also just be doing the maths on the potential GOAT plays from Reece as well. Currently, all of the characters on Reece's side of the board questing for 1, with the exception of that Minnie Mouse, and also with the Queen's Castle, it's 7 lore, which Reece is threatening next turn, which would bring them up to 16.
Yep.
So GOAT not quite getting there, but definitely creeping up towards that time where Frank is going to have to start trying to play around the potential of some GOATs winning Reece the game in an unexpected manner.
So what reasons could Frank have here to not want to quest this Rapunzel?
Really good question. Possibly a song in hand.
Yep, good thought.
Could be a song.
Strength for a Raging Fire could be useful if he really wants to pop that Minnie Mouse. You might be right. I feel like that is what he's umming and ahhing about. Reece must be feeling so incredibly tense watching him, like, oh, are you doing it? You're not doing it?
I think like this is just a real good example of a very experienced card game player that in an untimed final in particular, the game has been kind of racing through. Really, you can just see it like calculating everything that you can see with the hand movement, saying, right, what are the different outcomes if I do each different line. If there's 2 or 3 main lines, how is that going to be working out in 3, 4, 5 turns time?
Yeah, that's lots of maths to do, working out how close you can get to game through lore, your opponent, and what damage could be done through challenging characters. So this is an important decision. Like I said, the grand final of the Disney Lorcana Challenge, live from Lille.
And it looks like it is going to be Strength of a Raging Fire being sung by Rapunzel to remove the stylish surfer.
Indeed.
And the Sleepy's Flute as well is going to come through and put Frank up to 14 lore within touching distance. On board, Baker has a total of 7 lore.
And Reece scoops it up.
Yep, Frank had 7 lore on board, and of course that Sleepy's Flute could have put them even further. They were at 14 already. Very impressive performance from Frank, but I have to say, a key moment in that game was when that Cinderella Stouthearted was all alone on the board, and only 1 copy of Lady Tremaine in the deck for Reece, and she was nowhere to be seen on that occasion.
Wasn't able to find it, and then luckily Frank was able to build into Rapunzel, which, hey, we can't hold it against him. Absolutely not. I'm sure he's also had many bad top decks over the course of the tournament, so very appreciative of that Rapunzel, helping draw a couple of cards, and yeah, it started to go his way. And yeah, you see how quickly the tables turned. It did look like the Ruby Amethyst player was very much in control. Frank with not a lot of resources, but he's turned it around and said, nope, game 1 to me.
Oh my goodness, who is that, ladies and gentlemen? The first time we've seen that. The judge
I don't know.
the building.
See, I don't know him, but I swear I have defeated him in a card game. I just have this feeling, it's in the back of my mind. But
that is such an epic shot.
I'm sure it will come to me at some point, but in all seriousness.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with this man that's appeared in our screen, they are doing the tournament judge. And who is this? Let us know, Baker.
Yeah, it's Steve Warner, one of the creators of Lorcana, alongside Ryan, who isn't here. He's over at Atlanta, keeping an eye on that. I've seen lots of photos of him interacting with fans, which is great. But yeah, Steve Warner here. He's been here all weekend. We got to meet him. We got to do some casting with him. A really wonderful guy. I got to play with him, have a game of Lorcana in a showcase match the other day for set 4. And now Steve, very much with his game face on, watch a front row seat for the grand final of the first Disney Lorcana Challenge. You got to think he's proud.
Now you might think that he's just appeared out of nowhere, but no, let me tell you, this man has been watching every game like this over on the other tables that have not been broadcast. Been keeping a very close eye, keeping those golden Mickey Mouses very safely protected as well.
And to be fair, you can't get a better judge than the man that invented the rules of the game.
Absolutely. Okay, so both players drawing 7 cards to start the game, of course. Frank is winning, or Frank won the first game, so it's on Reece to decide if they go first or second, and I think it's fair to assume that Reece is going to decide to go first in game number 2 here.
Yeah, moving that Pinocchio straight to the back of his hand, which leads me to believe he's probably wanting to hold on to it, a really important piece to be able to pick off the Ariel or even the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, stopping that from shifting, or the Queen. There are so many targets that Reece will fear as soon as they hit the board, because they could shift into a Floodborn that could bring a lot of value. So I think keeping the Pinocchio is a very good choice. There's also the Rafiki in hand, which makes a wonderful turn 1 play. So theoretically, Reece could start here with the Rafiki easy. And if Frank does play something like the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, then the Pinocchio can come down, exert it, and Rafiki can challenge and would survive due to Ballroom Sensation Cinderella only having 1 strength.
Yeah, and just a reminder, everyone, that Reece here started playing Disney Lorcana at the very beginning of this set into the Inklands. So if you've not played Disney Lorcana before, why not get involved?
Exactly.
Ursula's Return is out now, and after this weekend is going to be the format which is played in these competitive events. So it'll be a great time to get involved with the game and try and pull off what Reece has done. In 3 months' time, you could be where Reece is sat and be in the final of a Disney Lorcana challenge.
Absolutely. If you've been watching this and thinking this looks like a lot of fun, exactly as was just said, get yourself into the game, learn it, come win a championship.
Absolutely, why not? Okay, so we can see the Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain
Excellent.
in the hand for Frank. I've had a lot of practice of that now.
Yeah, I can tell you've been running that through in your head, haven't you?
I certainly have.
I can tell. Right, okay. Are we going to see that opening play that I thought might be the case? I expect to see the 1-drop Rafiki at the very least, unless he's got another 1-drop that he'd prefer. Yeah, we do see that Mystical Fighter. Yeah,
it was Kuzco which went into the Inkwell. One thing I'm a little bit sad about is I missed out on Frank's very impressive shuffling skills this time around. I wasn't paying attention to it, but hopefully you guys at home caught that.
I mean, maybe he'll give you a private shuffling showing after the event.
I would pay good money for that.
We see the Pooh Pirate Captain is looking like it's on the way to the Inkwell and is going to be immediately exerted for that Ballroom Sensation Cinderella. Like I'd seen the match already, and I imagine Reece will take that line of Pinocchio to remove this immediately, because while it remains on the board, it could very easily sing Let the Storm Rage On to remove this Rafiki and draw Frank another card, and there you go, the talkative puppet coming down. You see the aggression of the Rafiki there as he just flips his hand towards it, like, be gone.
Yes, absolutely.
Goodbye, Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. I do not want to deal with you.
Yeah, and Pinocchio is a card which a lot of Ruby Amethyst players are running 1 copy of, but I do believe that Reece is rocking 2 copies of it. It's been a card which we've seen them utilize very impressively well against Emerald to deal with Ursula, Deceiver of All. But here, one of the very few ways that a deck like his, which is Ruby and Amethyst, can remove that Cinderella Ballroom Sensation this early on in the game.
Of course, and I'm sure, again, we could do the same thing with Ariel to stop her singing, and I'm sure it's had lots of use over the course of the tournament. I'm right there with Reece. I've been on 2 Pinocchio for a while now. I think it's a really important card, especially when set 3 came about and Ursula Deceiver of All was just putting in the most.
Absolutely.
So I'm absolutely with Reece there on the double Pinocchio, puts in a lot of work. He's going to Quest. Of course, Frank playing the Pooh Pirate Captain doesn't have another character on board, so will not be able to quest for 3 just yet, but give it time.
Yep, and 2 ink is spent on the Madam Mim Snake. Rafiki still with that 1 damage counter, not going to be questing, as that would give Frank the opportunity to remove it rather comfortably. Yeah, and Cinderella Ballroom Sensation is usually a card which is so difficult for Ruby and Amethyst to deal with. So the fact that Reece has been able to clean that up this quickly is a huge, huge start in Reece's favour in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that Pooh Pirate Captain came down turn 2, I imagine Reece isn't that mad about, because I'm sure he'd prefer that to a Queen or a Robin Hood, because if it was one of them, then Reece has to consider, okay, well, you could shift and sing next turn, whereas that is probably less likely now.
This could be the last game the challenge.
It could.
Frank is playing to win the first ever Disney Lorcana challenge here in Lille. Reece looking to pull off the reverse sweep by getting that 2-1 victory. Currently, if you're just joining us, you can see at the top, Frank won game number 1 of this best of 3 untimed final. The winner gets a full foiled set of Into the Inklands, which includes all of the Enchanteds to go along with it as well.
Yeah, we have had that confirmed. There was a little discussion whether or not it was every card in existence so far, but no, it is.
It's a miss. Ariel's missed.
Oh, it happened. It finally happened. Yeah, it's only set 3. You get all the fours.
Which is what Baker was saying all along.
No, it's absolutely fair enough. But again, I say only set 3.
Yeah.
That's an incredible prize and all the Enchanteds.
18 Enchanteds, I think?
Something along those lines, yeah. I want the Jafar so badly. Anyway, moving away from that, we've got live gameplay here. The Ariel missing, but at least there's another and this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Pinocchio coming down to remove that Ariel. So once again, Reece does not need to worry about grab your swords, about a whole new world. I was going to say a Zeus. Technically, Frank could just pay for Zeus after inking to 4, but that really takes options away from Frank. So Reece probably feeling good.
And there goes the Pinocchio back into Reece's hand, ready for a rainy day.
Yeah, I like that little moment between the two. Like, yes, okay, you're probably going to drop it again. There's little moments like that I really appreciate between players.
Yeah, and I think you can see why some players like to go for one copy of Pinocchio, because you can bounce back and use it many times.
Oh,
but Reece, doubling the count of the Pinocchio doubles the chances that they find it in their opening hand.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because you don't generally want to see more than one, especially because you can bounce them and they're uninkable. But it was working well for me in season, and clearly it's done very well for Reece.
You could probably argue it's better to have two than none at all in a lot of situations.
I would absolutely agree.
And I'm sure that Reece would say that exact thing, and that's why they've decided to go for two. And clearly it's worked, because they've been able to beat all sorts of deck this weekend. The wide range of meta decks is outrageously impressive, and Reece and Frank are the last men standing.
That Pooh Pirate Captain's still not going to be able to... Well, no, technically Frank could play two cheap characters. He could ink to 4, play a couple of 1-drops, play a couple of 2-drops, and then that Pooh Pirate Captain, Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain would be questing for 3, if that's what he wants to do. I think I've seen a Robin Hood in hand.
Yeah, Frank currently at 3 ink, did not ink yet this turn. And here comes the finger calculations.
Yeah. We saw this in the previous game. Frank thinking ahead to the tournament that's happening next year. Just thinking that far ahead in terms of his moves. But no, in all seriousness, thinking through the moves, thinking how much lore is on the table, what he could possibly do to level the board state, what's going to generate the most value for his deck.
And in comes the Rapunzel, not healing a single card because it can't heal Reece's, which means that Frank is unable to draw from this Rapunzel. Not what you're looking for if your name is Frank Karsten.
No, definitely not the preference, but again, it's equally important to be applying pressure
more
to the
finger
board.
calculations.
Yep, Reece also thinking to the tournament that's happening 2 years from now. But yeah, as you say, this Rapunzel, you want to draw cards, but it's still a big body, 5 willpower, questing for 2, so sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. We see the Pinocchio once again coming down. Obviously Frank knew that was in Reece's hand, because it was bounced. And the Rafiki going to be challenging in.
As the Mim and the Rafiki both challenged the Rapunzel there. Rafiki already had that 1 damage counter on.
Yep.
So Reece deciding to remove that. And I think a big reason is the threat of a second Rapunzel from Frank. Frank could perhaps swing their own Rapunzel into one of these Madam Mims, which would sink 3 damage counters onto Rapunzel. And then a follow-up Rapunzel would give Frank an abundance of card draw.
Absolutely. It also makes it harder for this Piglet to quest for 3 next turn.
Sure.
Not impossible. Could still drop a couple of cheap characters, but if the Rapunzel was still there, then it would just take one of anything, and he wouldn't have to use as much ink just to extend. We see the Queen being inked, bringing us to 5.
The scores on the doors. Reece on 2 lore. Frank yet to get a point on the board here just yet.
Also worth bearing in mind, because Reece is at 5 ink, he will have access to those 6-drop ladies in red from the next turn, either Madame Medusa or Lady Tremaine. I imagine Medusa wouldn't mind picking off this Piglet. There's the whole new world. There we go.
A big moment in this game. Not the way that Frank would love to be playing this card.
No,
usually we've seen Frank prefer to sing a whole new world with a 5-cost character or an aerial, and then you're able to continue to play your ink after that. But now Frank has spent his entire ink well, all exerted, for that whole new world. And Reece's hand is refilled as well as Frank's.
I mean, Frank's just saying, okay, well, have a fresh hand, but I need options. Clearly didn't have enough that he was happy with to be able to win this game and take the match. So where there's a whole new world, there's a way. And we pass into Reece, who has a really healthy hand now.
I think we see that second Pinocchio, if I'm not mistaken. Minnie Mouse is going to be inked. Reece not needing mini services in this game right now, which is definitely different from the semi-final. Minnie Mouse was the star of the show there for Reece.
We're going to exert 4, forgive me, for the Queen's Castle. This is going to demand an answer from Frank. What answers does he have?
A very different game to what we saw in the first game there.
Moving the Pinocchio and the the snake with 2 damage into the Queen's Castle.
Yep, so it costs 1 ink to move a character into the Queen's Castle, and if you are able to do that, if that character remains there at the start of your next turn, not only is Queen's Castle going to be getting you 2 lore at the start of your turn, but it's also going to be drawing you a card for every character you have in there. So if the Pinocchio and the Madam Mim remain in the Queen's Castle, at the start of Reece's next turn, the castle will be gaining them 2 lore and 2 extra cards in hand. But there comes the grab your swords. 5 ink spent for that again. No singer available for Frank. So not the most ideal way to be playing grab your sword, but certainly good to slow Reece down.
Yeah, and I think while you're absolutely right, that's definitely not the way you want to play grab your sword. Moving that whole board and denying the 2 draw from the Queen's Castle, I think was absolutely worth it. Yep. Robin Hood also joining to threaten the Floodborn shift on the following turn.
Queen's Castle lore comes through, which puts Reece up to 6. Teeth and Ambitions, the card found. Of course, after that whole new world, both players have an abundance of cards available in hand. Maui into the Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain.
Nice, I like it.
There is a Robin Hood shift available in Frank's hand as well, which could very well be coming through in the next turn. Unless Reece has other ideas. The Teeth and Ambitions. Maui with 1 willpower remaining.
What a turn. And Frank ready, set, draw. He's got the Robin Hood in hand. I think that's a queen.
That was a huge Teeth and Ambitions play, Baker.
Yeah, it's put in a lot of work for him, clearly. Some matches it's not useful at all, but in things like Steel Song or Emerald decks, that Teeth and Ambitions, really powerful. 2-cost Inkable Song. Deal 2 damage to a chosen character of yours, to deal 2 damage to an opposing chosen character. And it's worth bearing in mind, you have to be able to do the 2 damage to one of your characters to be able to do damage to the opponent. If you're a newer player thinking, oh, can I just play it with no characters and do 2 damage? No, you cannot. You do need to be able to apply that 2 damage to one of your own characters.
Yep, absolutely. And this is feeling a little bit similar. Cinderella all on her own on the board for Frank Karsten. In an open deck list format, though, Frank knows there's only 1 Lady Tremaine and there's 60 cards in Reece's deck, so not fearing it too much, just having to kind of say, okay, if you have Lady Tremaine, I probably lose. Yep. However, if you don't, then I've got a real chance here.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a game ahead.
Look at that. Frank just nodding and, yep, okay. I see what you're doing there. This is a play we've seen Reece do a couple of times now.
Yeah, the Queen's Castle obviously receiving an upgrade and doubling. Now there are 2 big locations for Frank to deal with. The Cinderella can deal with 1 that has 2 damage on it. That's fine. But then it's not questing, and it's going to be vulnerable for Maui. Can't one-shot the Cinderella Stout-Hearted, and the rabbit would do nothing because of the resist 2. But the Maui could go in, and then we could bounce the rabbit with a fox to deal with the Stout-Hearted. And I think Frank wants this Cinderella to put in a lot more work than that. But I don't think he has a choice. This castle's got to go, right?
Yeah, Cinderella's still readied on the board for Frank. Double castle available for Reece. So the Maui, of course, not questing, but the rabbit would put them to 9, and then the 4 lore of the castles would be putting Reece up to 13 potentially next turn with what they've got on board, starting to edge closer to that 20 mark. And of course, let's not forget about the goats. As soon as Reece is in that 16 to 17 mark, he's going to change the game plan entirely potentially and just rely on those goats to cross the finish line.
Yep. No, he's got a lot of pressure on board already, and really this is Frank's board to respond to. Reece could sit on this board for a while longer if he wanted to, but I'm sure he will extend. How many cards in his hand? 3 or 4? Something on those lines. Frank eyeing up that Cinderella Stout-Hearted, not sure what he wants to do with it yet. There's a Robin Hood Floodborn in hand. There's a Sleepy's Flute in hand. There we go. We are committing. Cinderella challenging into that damaged Queen's Castle to remove it from the board. I think that's necessary. It absolutely had to go. And Reece is still going to have to spend some resources to remove this Stout-Hearted if he wants to. Maui would not be enough on its own. Reece would also need to be able to find a fox, which of course would take out itself in return. Or another Maui would do it as well.
Frank is yet to get a single lore on the board in this game, but for now has to really focus on denying Reece gaining any more lore. The Queen is going to come through.
Commanding presence on the board.
2 left, and it's going to be on the flute. Will we see Frank exert the flute for no reason at all? We saw it in the quarterfinals, Frank exerting Sleepy's flute even though it didn't gain them any lore. but so far we haven't seen them do it yet in the grand final.
I think it depends on how much thought is going on. I mean, there's always thought going on, but I mean, if he's in a very confident position, I feel like he'd be more willing to do so, but it's not looking great. It's not looking... He could still come back.
Let us know in the chat. Do you think that Frank is going to exert the flute for no reason? Yes or no? Let us know. What are you going for, Baker?
I mean, as a musician for most of my life...
He didn't do it.
Didn't do it. I was just going to say, as a musician most of my life, it is against my nature to perform music without payment. So if I'm not getting lore in return, then you do not get a musical performance.
Amazing. Yeah, so Sleepy's flute, of course, can be exerted every turn, but it's only if you play the song this turn you gain a lore.
And we're seeing 4 ink exerted by Reece to play down another rabbit. Dig, 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 dig.
Reece just going to take a little bit of time, assess what is in the discard pile here of Frank. Of course, discard pile, public information. In fact, many things on the board are public information. You can see the amount of cards in the inkwell. Of course, you're not allowed to look at a card in the inkwell once it's been inked, but also you are allowed to check how many cards are left in your opponent's deck, while, of course, making sure not to peek at any of those cards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but let's look at this Pinocchio once again putting in the most work, exerting that Queen commanding presence. And I'm not sure what challenge. Oh, it was the Maui. It was the Maui, absolutely. The Queen's Castle is going to get a couple of new lodgers, or just one new lodger, the Merlin Rabbit. I think that's all he had enough to pay for. Oh, no.
Looks like everything's into the castle.
Everyone's moving in. It's moving day.
So yeah, Maui removing the Queen in combination with the Pinocchio talkative puppet. It really has been the Pinocchio show so far for Reece.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right.
And this Queen's Castle is now a real issue for Frank. No cards really available for Frank that can deal damage to locations instantly without any rush characters. One card which does come to mind could be a potential And Then Along Came Zeus.
Yep.
Just going to check. There is a couple of copies of
right?
And Then Along Came Zeus. Yeah, 2 copies of Zeus in Frank's deck. Not sure if they've got access to it just yet at this moment. Of course, cards like Grab Your Sword, while very powerful at dealing with lots of characters, are not hitting locations.
No. Just repeat something that was said not too long ago about the dice on the hand there. Just the 2 representing for Reece how many cards in his hand. Just for the sake of people that might be just joining the stream and didn't hear Curly talking about it not too long ago. Just an easy way for Frank to be able to tell how many cards are in Reece's hand without necessarily having to stop and ask.
Yeah, funnily enough, we didn't see Reece doing it in the semi-finals, but their opponent did do it in the semi-finals, and they're like, oh, I kind of like that. I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Really cool to see.
Or it might have been that he does it, but just forgot, but then that reminded him, oh, yeah, I should probably be. I've certainly done that in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in case anyone at home was wondering why there is a dice with a 2 on the hand. Looking through the discard pile again, that Cinderella Stout-Hearted is going to do 5 damage to the Queen's Castle.
But there's still 2 willpower remaining on the castle. The Robin Hood for 5 ink. 1 ink remaining.
Okay.
That was the Queen was played for 1. There's still that 1 ink unexerted by Frank, and play passes on over to Reece. And the Queen's Castle value comes through. 2 lore. But not only 2 lore, 3 cards.
2 and 3 for the castle, and of course the additional 1 for
4th card.
That was the Be Prepared just there, the big red button. So
my goodness.
If Frank does start to stabilise this board,
I don't even think Frank's going to hesitate. I think Reece. I'm really glad to see Reece taking their time here. We did see in a few of the games earlier them playing a lot more quickly than Frank. Even if the play is obvious, it's absolutely worth just pausing to take time. I don't think the play is obvious, but it seems like Reece likes the odds of the Queen's Castle staying on the board if the board is wiped. The Cinderella going and being this far ahead at this stage in the game with goats in the deck could be GG in Reece's favour.
I think it's a good bet to say that Frank's probably going to spend time challenging into these characters. So I think it makes sense to hold the B prep, let Frank essentially waste a turn, not questing or anything like that, not singing songs, just challenging into a board, and then Reece is just going to go, okay, now I'll clear it.
Yeah, the other thing, if Reece does go for the Be Prepared, of course, with these rabbits leaving the board, he's going to get a few extra cards in hand, but I think with the open deck list format, knowing that this Queen's Castle is safe apart from And Then Along Came Zeus, meaning that Reece would be getting to 18 within touching distance with just a goat or 2, 3 spent. Going to go for the fox, bouncing back the rabbit instead.
Drawing another card as a result.
Kuzco gets inked.
And we're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4. No, just the 3. Yep, the 3. The crab coming down.
7 strength, Madam Mim out of nowhere.
That is how you deal with a stout-hearted Cinderella. And again, why crab is such a powerful card. Cheap, 3 cost inkable 3/3, giving challenger 3 to a chosen character when entering and leaving play.
What a play from Reece. I'm thinking the only way the Cinderella could possibly be removed by Reece is with a be prepared, but they have a very special trick up their sleeve.
The Robin Hood or the Queen could still deal with this Queen's Castle, but then Reece still has 4 characters on board, and if you hadn't noticed, he's at 16 lore, and goats are still a thing.
Goats absolutely are still around. I don't think we've seen Reece play one yet this game.
I don't believe so, no, unless we missed one being inked potentially, but I imagine there are still some in the deck.
Frank not giving up hope just yet. 16 lore behind. Reece is absolutely running away with it. Cinderella stout-hearted into the inkwell for Frank. And of course, if Reece takes this, it will be going to game number 3.
I'm expecting the Whole New World here, I think, sung by the Robin Hood. It's also a Grab Your Swords there, would take out one of the characters. And then you could challenge into the rabbit to finish it off with the Queen. That's a line. I feel like he might be more tempted to go for the Whole New World, though, you know. But we'll see. He could prove me wrong.
Frank just continuing to show a lot of careful planning.
Maybe both. Pay 5 for the Grab Your Swords. That's going to take the Pinocchio off the board. It's going to do 2 damage to everything else.
And it's not going to deal 2 damage to the Queen's Castle,
of
importantly,
course.
though. The locations are not impacted, and the Whole New World comes through. Big hand discarded by Reece with a Be Prepared, a Lady Tremaine. Frank's going to draw 7.
Lady Tremaine gone now,
Reece is going to draw 7 as well. Yeah, Lady Tremaine going into the discard there.
That's big to know, again, because Frank knows that Reece is only playing 1, so can eliminate that as a possibility. 1 Be Prepared gone, but there's still a couple more in the deck. I imagine the Queen is got to go into this Queen's Castle at this point, which is a cruel irony in some ways.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The castle has turned against her. Of course,
the Sleepy's Flute goes a point on the board for Frank and a wry smile.
Yeah, there's a smile on my co-star's face right now. I'm glad to see it.
19 more lore to go for Frank, so a while to go. A lot of catching up necessary.
This is Storm Rage on.
The crab is removed. Challenger is given, I suppose, to one of Reece's cards here. The Queen is challenging into the Queen's Castle. Ironically, as you mentioned, it is going to be Reece's turn. Can quest out with both rabbits to get to 18. So, of course, a goat, couple of goats, a goat and a mim would be enough for Reece to close it out right here.
Yeah, for sure. And if he's missing that, there are 3 copies of Medusa in the deck. Maybe 2, may have lost 1, but Medusa would be a really nice target here to remove that Robin Hood. I think we're inking the Stylish Surfer Mini.
There's a goat, and there's a Be Prep to win it as well in style.
Game. It is 1-1. And you may be able to hear the sound of applause from the auditorium out there. Everyone loving watching this finals match, and we are going to a game 3.
We absolutely are. What a way to finish it. Finishing with style. The goat for ink to go down, putting Reece to 19, and then Be Prepared, wiping the board, including the goat.
Absolutely.
Of course, when the goat leaves play as well, that extra lore necessary. I was talking about the Mim bounce, a second goat, but Reece thinks, nope, Be Prepared.
That'll do. Do it with style, and you see that almost relief on his face that he is still in the game. Steve Warner probably absolutely loving this, like the highest skill level of play of his baby, essentially, him and Ryan, of course.
Yeah, and you can see behind them there the Rapunzel Gifted with Healing alternative artwork, which is a challenge exclusive. Both these players have already secured that, but they're now playing for, of course, not only the full set, 3 enchanted and foil set, but also the trophy, the pride as well. And you just write yourself down in the history books of Disney Lorcana as the first ever challenge winner.
Oh yeah,
and let's not forget Baker.
Go on.
As much fun as we're having here, the fun for Disney Lorcana does not end today with this last game, because after we're finished, you can head on over to see the action unfold in the challenge event taking place in North America right now. So much Disney Lorcana fun this weekend.
Yeah, please stay with us to the end, but once you have, head over to check out what's going on in Atlanta. They're obviously a little bit behind us, so if you're not Lorcana'd out for the day,
I'm certainly not.
No, me either.
I think we're going to be finishing, we're going to go get a bite to eat, and we're going to be watching the action on our phones.
100%.
Just like we were last night.
100%.
Both players shuffling. Frank's shuffling is very intimidating. It's just so smooth.
Yeah, it is. Reece staring, mesmerized by it.
Okay, both players presenting the decks to each other. Frank's not done shuffling, actually.
No, he's not satisfied.
He's very thorough.
Also, again, I want to mention when that whole new world play did happen a couple of turns before that game ended. Again, both players doing what I think is the right thing to do. If you get your hand discarded, show your opponent. Save the time of them having to, may I look at your discard, and reach over and look through. Just show, hit, this is what you've hit, and then go into the discard pile.
Absolutely. Okay, so with Reece winning the previous game, Frank being the loser in game number 2, this means that Frank gets to decide if they go first or second. Frank's going to decide to go first in this one.
Oh, absolutely.
It all comes down to this. The winner of this next game of Disney Lorcana will be the first Disney Lorcana Challenge winner. Frank Karsten versus Reece Benlier. Amber Steel Songs versus Ruby Amethyst. Any sign of the talkative puppet? It doesn't seem as though there is.
You see the one drop, the Rafiki is here. I imagine Reece wants to dig for that, but at the same time, just because Frank is going first, if he does start with the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella and then Reece plays the one drop, it could immediately be removed by the Let the Storm Rage On from Frank's side of the field, being sung by that Singer 3 Ballroom Sensation Cinderella. So maybe he adapts how he wants to go about his play this time.
Looks like 3 for Reece is going to be mulliganed away.
He had he had good cards in his hand. He had the 3-drop Maleficent. There was a rabbit there. Depends how desperately he wants to dig for certain things.
And on the other side, a very aggressive mulligan from Frank with 6 cards being put back into the deck and shuffled away after Frank draws the 6 off the top. Again, Frank going to be deciding to go first. Look at that shuffle. It's just I just can't stop looking at it, Baker.
He loves it. But yeah, no, a very aggressive mulligan, going to show that Frank was not happy with the opening hand, just 1 card being kept. So that's worrying, really. Like, when you see an opponent mulligan back just 1 or 2, you think, oh, okay, your hand's near enough perfect then. But a mulligan this big, Frank could mulligan into a brick. I hope it doesn't happen, though. I want to see a full game here. And there's
there we go. Amazing to see it.
Love to see it. That's just my own little round of applause. I love a bit of sportsmanship. All right, here we go. We are in the final of the Disney Lorcana Challenge Lille. Here we go.
Frank Karsten going to be opening things up here. Sends a Robin Hood into the inkwell, and in comes the Queen.
Probably not the one drop that Frank wanted. I imagine you would go with the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella if it was available. I'm not seeing it in his hand, but still fine to hit the one drop. And of course, this can shift on turn 2 if Frank wants to and has the Queen, the Floodborn Queen. Down comes a Rafiki on Reece's side, and we're back over to Frank, who I believe topped a whole new world.
Yeah, and we do know that Reece loves that Minnie Mouse, but deciding to go for the Rafiki instead and send Minnie Mouse into the inkwell. Of course, when going second, Reece valuing the stats of the Rafiki, being able to remove some more, well, characters with 3 willpower. Meanwhile, Minnie Mouse can only remove characters with 1 willpower. So that Rafiki is going to be preventing, if the Queen was to shift in, that card from questing.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously the 1-3 of Minnie does survive a few things, but if you want to be on the offensive with this Rafiki, you really need to be able to hitting for 3 at least.
Here we go. What an opening from Frank. And we're going to see the Storm Rage on with the Queen. What an opening from Frank. Shifting in the Queen for just 2, and no Cinderella necessary because the Queen
There's the Pinocchio.
Oh my goodness.
Oh. That must feel bad. That's a foil Jim Hawkins being inked and a pass over, no 2-drop. So clearly no Kuzco in the hand. There may have been a snake, but there is no character to return to the hand, so that would not work.
Now, Baker, we saw 6 cards being mulliganed away by Frank. Just imagine if one of those cards that was kept was one of these queens, if this was the plan all along. Possibly the Storm Rage on, I'm not certain. But just amazing to see them utilising the shift power of the Queen on turn 2, getting a 5 strength character down already, singing the Storm Rage on, and getting some really early board control. And of course then, Reece's misery compounded by that turn 2 pass. Just an inker card, no card onto the board. Smee's going to get inked, and in comes Aerial. Here we go.
We already have a hit. We have 2 hits. We have 3 hits, well, double Whole New World and 1 strength for Raging Fire, going to take the strength. But yeah, exactly as you say, the Queen being able to immediately remove. I was talking about the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation playing this on turn 2. This was another way of doing it. So yeah, really strong opening from Frank.
Yeah, and we saw 2 Whole New Worlds there being put on the bottom of the deck for Frank. There's 1 in the hand already, which means that there's only really 1 Whole New World in the top set of the deck, which is likely to be found again by Frank. So that's something to look out for.
So we shall see.
Yeah, so Maleficent is all that Reece now has down on the board, the 3 costs. The Queen and Aerial for Frank. Reece definitely going to be looking to try and get back some board control. So something like a Queen's Castle at this moment in time, even though it's been great for Reece, not going to really be cutting it. Needs to be getting some characters with good strength down on the board to start contesting these characters.
Yeah, and again, Frank with 2 singers on the board, that Aerial with Singer 5 or the Queen commanding presence, who could both sing not only Whole New World but Storm Rage on, Strength for Raging Fire. Those along came Zeus's that we've allured to. So while those singers are here, Reece does need to play carefully. There was another Aerial as well from Frank. We saw in the previous game he was happy to play in multiple. And he may be looking to do the same thing. It is the top card in his hand, so I imagine that's the line he's considering at the moment.
Yeah, and just looking at the body language of Reece, not looking too happy at how this game has started off.
Yeah, no, definitely not the opening he was hoping for. But again, we've watched Reece play a couple of games over the course of the tournament where it looked like he was in a really bad position and was able to bring it back.
Very true.
So I'm not ready to bet against him just yet.
Storm Rage on is selected by Frank. There was the option of grab your swords. And we could even see one of the Aerials or the Queen singing this. Of course, the Aerial that was just played is still having the ink dried, so not able to do anything. But this Aerial has been on the board for a whole turn and is ready to go. Storm Rage on, sung by Aerial. The Maleficent is removed from the board, and Robin Hood is drawn for Frank. A couple of Robin Hoods in Frank's hand.
I think that's a good play because he's eliminating the Maleficent being able to potentially sing Friends on the other side on the next turn. So just really slowing Reece down, giving Frank more time to set up his board and create a situation where he's ready to start questing and reaching his win condition.
And we've seen Frank do this before. We saw him do it in I think the quarterfinals or the round of 16. Those might be the same thing. I don't think they are. We saw Frank do it earlier where they got a really wide board out of nowhere. We saw them sing a Whole New World and then go incredibly wide with lots of characters and lots of questing. And they've done something a little bit similar here with that Robin Hood, those 2 Aerials and the Queen. Reece is up against it. 3 ink in the inkwell. I bet Reece is wishing they had 7 so they could go for that Be Prepared, but they're still a long way away from being able to wipe the board with Be Prepared.
Even wishing that he had access to 5, because at least then he would be able to play Maui, but unfortunately that is not going to be possible this turn. Although we could see a Fox here, that will be a way to deal with the Queen or the Aerial, and that is the line taken. The Minnie Mouse always classed being returned to the hand for the Madam Mim Fox, who then with that rush ability is going to challenge into Aerial Spectacular Singer, get her out of here.
Yeah, definitely an interesting decision from Reece here. I like the decision to go for the Fox, essentially paying 4 ink that turn for the Fox to play the Mini, bounce the Mini back for the Fox, but had the option of removing the Queen. The Queen is definitely a very powerful card when it's questing, because when it quests, it can give one of Frank's cards 4 strength, but more importantly in this instance, it can lower the Madam Mim Fox's strength down to 0, meaning that the Robin Hood could remove the Madam Mim Fox and stay on the board. So Reece did have the option of removing and trading the Fox for the Queen, but instead decided to prioritize removing that Aerial. That was definitely an interesting decision in this one.
Yeah, like you say, if he'd have tried to go into the queen, the fox would have been removed on Reece's turn, and it can be removed now on Frank's just by the queen questing, but at least then he is making Frank be the one to deal with it, and then the fox will take out whatever challenges in return.
Ariel sings A Whole New World. Frank's leaning over, having a gander to see what was discarded. It was a Pinocchio, a Mini, and a Be Prepared. Seven cards drawn for each player now.
Probably feels quite good for Reece, who again was a couple of turns away from that Be Prepared, so hopefully this fresh 7 gets him a little closer to creating a board state that can compete with Frank's, which is building very quickly.
And there we see it, the queen lowering Madam Mim Fox to 0 strength. Robin Hood able to remove it from the board and survive the hit. Reece still quite far away from that Be Prepared range, and Frank's board is incredibly menacing.
Is this a Maui we're going to see here? It certainly is going to immediately rush and challenge that Queen of Hearts. Does live, only taking 4 damage.
Yeah, the queen into the discard pile. Card drawn for Frank as Reece ends their turn.
Oh, it's a Rapunzel. So won't be able to get value from the Rapunzel necessarily this turn, because anything that challenges into Maui is going to just be instantly banished. You want something really with a little less strength so that you could survive, and then Rapunzel to draw some cards. But certainly it will be here, there in his hand, ready for when he needs it.
Frank on 6 ink. On the other side, 6 lore. On the other side, Reece still on 0. Hasn't got a point on the board just yet. Frank with...
Bit of a tradition.
Yeah. Frank with 5 ink in the inkwell.
And of course, as he goes into his turn 6, Frank will be very aware that that opens up the Madame Medusa or Lady Tremaine. Medusa probably the better one in this particular instance. You want that Tremaine really for that stout-hearted, which has been putting in so much work so far.
Yeah, and the second copy of the Queen, of course, one was removed, but there's another one where that came from. This is ready to go, has been on the board since the start of the turn. Frank still with all that ink available. Of course, could lower Maui's strength to just 2 with the Queen here. Does do that, and Ariel now essentially has 6 strength for the turn.
There you go. Okay, that's interesting. I was just saying won't be able to get Rapunzel value this turn, but yeah, by lowering the strength with the Queen, there you go. There is a way of getting there. Fair enough.
Big play from Frank, drawing 2 more cards with Rapunzel. The Queen has put in some serious work. The Queen has been the star of the show in this game number 3.
I would
that
agree.
Shift on turn 2, but then also the powerful ability when questing to make some really efficient trades for Frank. And it's a 5-cost character, so it can even sing stuff like
And then
along
Swords,
came
A Whole
Zeus.
New World, along
Exactly.
came Zeus, all these things. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The Queen has been the star of this particular game.
Frank on 9 lore, so 11 away from winning.
He's got a healthy-sized hand as well. Could definitely extend more if he wants to. Reece sitting at 5 ink, is that right? Yes, because he played the Maui on the last turn, so he shouldn't have access to Be Prepared yet.
And the board has gone so wide. And I have to say, Baker,
Go on.
this is the most quiet the building has been the whole weekend.
Absolutely.
The whole weekend has been lots of noise, lots of people talking, obviously lots of side events going on. But right now, it feels like everyone in the building is just watching history unfold.
The eyes of Lorcana are on these 2 gentlemen, and I absolutely love it, and it's an honour to be here for it. That Madame Medusa coming down to remove that Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain who would have been questing for 3 next turn with plenty of other characters on board.
Yeah, and of course now Reece just that 1 turn away from being at that magical 7 ink mark, which of course means Be Prepared could come through.
For sure.
We
But
know
Frank has a big hand that could immediately redevelop, so...
We do know Frank has that 1 copy of Bare Necessities as well, which could discard Be Prepared potentially. Doesn't look like it's there. I'm actually not certain if Reece has it available. Of course, could always be off the top card of the deck as well.
I don't think it's been inked. I've been trying to pay attention better this time for what's being inked, but again, just a one-off, could be anywhere in the deck.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen it so far.
There is a Sleepy's Flute if Frank feels like he's going to start playing a lot of songs, and it does hit the board. Of course, paying 2 to do so.
Yep, and then that 3, which was just spent as well for the strength of a Raging Fire. 4 characters on the board means 4 damage, and Madame Medusa is removed. And we see a big quest come in from Frank. And Frank knows potentially the be prepared could be around the corner.
We just heard a cry from the auditorium. I think the wrong player's law jumped up there. It's shown Reece as jumping to 16 as opposed to it should be Frank, who has just gained 1 law from the Sleepy's Flute, 2 from the Rapunzel, 2 from the Queen, 1 from the Ariel and 1 from the Robin Hood. Not to worry. I'm sure that will be sorted very quickly, but a very audible reaction from our viewers out in the hall.
So Frank, they're still on that 16 law mark. I think they've spent all their ink. I think there might be 1 ink left there, Baker, and maybe a 1-cost Queen in hand. At this moment in time, Frank going to be deciding, okay, it's only be prepared I lose to in this position, so do I play further into be prepared? Is it necessary to play that extra card?
Yeah, I got very confused there. I looked at player 1-2 the wrong way round. My apologies. But yeah, Frank getting ever closer to game.
No problem at all. Reece definitely hoping for be prepared off the top if it's not already in the hand. Let's try and get a little glimpse. I don't think it's in there, Baker.
I'm not seeing it. There is a rabbit that could dig for it, but then we wouldn't have enough ink to play it. So not really what we're looking for.
Well, there's always the chance of the top deck for Reece.
It's happened before. We saw it in his semi-final game. Or his quarter-final game, should I say. Apologies.
Frank really taking their time at this moment. And this is what's beautiful about Disney Lorcana. So many decisions to make. Even just what card goes into the inkwell each turn can often be the most important decision in the game. And Frank knows how close they are. Just wants to make sure that they cross the finish line and see this one out. Strength of a Raging Fire is inked. Play passes over. Is it be prepared? It's not!
Oh, extends the hand. And Frank is your first ever Disney Lorcana Challenge Lille champion.
Amazing stuff. Frank Karsten has done it. Over 2,000 players that look into the camera.
Victory.
A man with a very strong reputation for card games has pulled it off. And commiserations and full respect to Reece. What a performance.
Absolutely. What a run over these last 2 days. Nothing to be ashamed of. Made it all the way to 2nd place. I'm out of breath, man.
What a series it was, and a completely dominant performance in that game 3 there. We saw the Queen shift coming in from turn number 2, and that really set the pace in that one. It was an absolute joy to watch. Well done to both players for all that entertainment.
And what a reward for your first prize after this. A handshake from the creator. And does he have prizes for them here and now?
I think they might. This man has been walking around with this box, guarding it with his life.
Is that the full foil set? Or is that the... I'm not sure.
Just making sure what's what here. Just checking it out. But I know that there's those. Oh my! Wait, what are those?
Oh, I think is that a binder with
what is that? We've never seen that. That is new. That is something spicy.
Genuinely, we haven't been prepped.
No, we didn't get told about what that is.
I think that's the Mickey. Yeah. Okay. So that's the box where they've been keeping the Mickeys that they've been giving to the top 8
Amazing.
players.
Big round of applause. Some kind of very secret special box.
I feel like that's probably the Ursa's Return booster boxes that are guaranteed. Yeah, because they're both getting them. So I imagine that's I think it's 2 displays.
All sorts of goodies being handed out.
I think that must be the foil.
And there we go, the most valuable prize of all, the Mickey Mouse.
Oh, look at this binder.
Amazing.
Oh, I'm so excited to see this.
Oh my goodness. That is outrageous.
Oh, what a prize to win, and so well earned by Frank.
What a prize.
This is incredible. Yes, yes, flex it. We want to see.
That is quite special.
Yes, even the binder's awesome.
I
Look
know.
at it. Oh.
Well done to both players. A great handshake there.
I've got a tear in my eye, man. That was beautiful. Absolutely stunning, the presentation of the prizes there. Oh, what I wouldn't give for that book.
Absolutely. It was so much fun to watch. Well done to both players. And I think we need to take this opportunity, Baker, to say a massive thank you to everyone that's been able to make this event happen. A big thank you to all the players from coming from far and wide. A massive thank you, of course, to all the people behind the game that have made this possible. I want to say a big thank you to you. And I also, very importantly, want to say a big thank you to all the judges who have been working tirelessly over this weekend, making sure that everyone is happy, safe and sound. What a tournament it's been, and I cannot wait to see how Atlanta plays out as well.
I'm very keen to watch that.
You've got more to come, ladies and gentlemen. It's like we're only halfway through the day here. We're done, but you've got Atlanta still to look forward to now.
Of course, the stream is going on a little bit longer. We're going to be signing off shortly, but you will be joined by Steve Warner himself.
And Reece as well.
And Reece as a special guest to have a little conversation, and they'll be the ones signing you off. But yeah, once again, a shout out to the judges, and to the judges in particular. They're all Lorcana fans and players. They could have come to play, but they have instead decided they want to be on the judge team and help run the event, which is absolutely fantastic. There's a huge team of technical people, and to be honest, I don't even think we've met them all.
No.
I think there are probably a ton more that are just walking behind the scenes, but it's such a large operation. Thank you so much to Ravensburger, to Tournament Centre, who obviously helped with the arrangement of these events. They've done so much work. Thank you to all the fans, of course, that without the fans, who knows if we'd have gotten to this stage. And it's an honour to have been here once again. It was a genuine honour to cast the first one with you. Hopefully, maybe there'll be more in the future, but if there's not, we can always say that we did the first one, right?
Yeah, no doubt. It's been an absolute blast. A massive thank you to all of those that have been watching the stream, enjoying the games. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. It was an absolute blast. And yeah, as I mentioned, there is going to be a very exciting guest joining us very, very soon. So we're going to be disappearing, but don't worry, the stream's not done yet. We've been told there's that Steve's coming on, and we don't know why, so I don't know. I'm pretty excited to see what happens. I'm going to be lurking, eavesdropping, seeing what's happening.
We'll be at the sidelines.
So Reece is going to be coming onto the stream as well, just so we know exactly. Well, Reece is going to be joining on. It's like a winner's interview with Steve, and that's going to be really exciting as well. If you also want to see the winner interview, that's going to be going on the French broadcast. So you can see over here is the exact prize situation for this. The Lorcana Challenge trophy is absolutely coming Frank's way.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet. Probably above our pay grade challenge trophy. That's too much responsibility for us to handle. But yeah, and also the full foil set of cards which we saw being presented in that beautiful Lorcana binder, all the enchanted as well, and not to mention all the prizes they've already received. The Mickey BLT gold licensed number that came for top 8, the Stout-Hearted, the Rapunzel, the playmat, so much.
Yeah, so many goodies. And also just worth mentioning, while all this has been going on, there's been a wide variety of side events taking place over today. So there's been so much Disney Lorcana action, not only the main event. It's been an absolute joy to see all the excitement in the building. As I mentioned, very shortly we're going to be going on over to a break. And then when the stream is back, we're going to be out of here. We're going to be done for the weekend. But Steve Warner, joined by Reece. Baker, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much to you. Big thank you to everyone watching the stream. This is us signing off, but when the stream returns, it's going to be Steve Warner with an interview with Reece, and you do not want to miss that. Thank you so much, everyone. There it is.